Hi everyone, my name is Shaylin, and today we are going to be discussing some topics that was covered in the theory of mind reading that is for the assignment perspectives on who we are. I have also decided to create a PowerPoint to help showcase each topic that I will be talking about and to make it easier for you to follow along and understand. So let's begin. The first slide that we have is generally about the theory of minds. And now the theory of mind is how we understand another person's mental states, their beliefs, thoughts, intentions, and their desires are all different. And this allows us to infer and predict another person's behavior and also empathize with their perspectives cognitively. People's theory of mind frames and interprets perceptions of human behavior as perceptions of agents who can act intentionally and have desires, beliefs, and mental states to help guide their actions. We must understand minds in order to help us engage in the complex interactions that social communities do require. These interactions have helped to increase human cultural evolution, books, computers, money, education, law, and science. These are all just a few of the complex social interactions. There's also a list of many interactions that rely significantly on theory of minds. This includes, but is not limited to, 1. Teaching another new rules or actions by considering what they do and do not know in the best way to make one understand. 2. Figuring out our social standing by trying to guess what another may think or feel about us. And 3. Learning the words of a language by monitoring what other people attend to and what they are trying to do when they use certain words. Next, we are going to talk a little bit about the appreciation for the theory of mind. For an individual to have an appreciation for another's mind, this is to be considered a prerequisite for natural language acquisition, strategic social interaction, reflexive thought, and moral judgment. One can also appreciate the impact that theory of mind has on social interactions by studying what happens when the capacity is severely limited, such as autism and other areas. People are really good at using their own minds as a fitting model for other minds, and we should all know when it is best to step out of our own perspective and represent the other person's perspective fully, even though theirs might be different and related to the thoughts, feelings, and intentions and desires. Now, we all process information and categorize them into concepts such as agent, intentional action, and fear, and we also rely on psychological processes including imitation, projection, joint attention, mental state inference, and simulation, which are all a capacity of the theory of mind and behavior. Now, the theory of mind is considered to be a toolbox for many different but related tasks within the social world because it isn't just a single thing but a whole host of components, and they are all organized to help show the complexity of the involved processes, where the automatic and simple are on the bottom and the complex and deliberate are on the top. It also shows the development from the tools that infants master within the first 6 to 12 months to the ones that they need to acquire over the next 3 to 5 years. It even shows the need, it even shows the evolution in a way where the tools that monkeys have available to them are on the bottom. Chimps have the tools on the second level, and humans master only the tools that are remaining. Let's talk a little more in depth about the different categories. The agent allows us humans to identify the moving objects in the world that can act on their own. And recognizing goals builds upon this agent category. And due to the agents being characteristically directed towards the goal objects, that is why. And in order for us to act intentionally, one must, aside from a goal, have the right kinds of beliefs about how to achieve this said goal. When a person is learning how to recognize the variety of ways by which agents pursue different goals, they are learning to pick out intentional behaviors. Imitation and empathy are the two categories that did the understanding of my childhood. Imitation is the human tendency to carefully observe another's behavior and do as they do. Mimicry is just a form of imitation, and when we mimic one another, we are reaching a state of synchrony. Now, automatic empathy tends to build upon imitation and synchrony. When someone enters a situation of joint attention, they're actively engaging with another person's mental state. When we are using visual perspective taking, this is where we are overcoming our egocentric perspective, leading to adopting the individual's spatial viewpoint. And this helps to determine how the world looks from their perspective. Now, simulation is a tool that uses one's own mental states as a model for others' mental states and to help understand the other person's thoughts, feelings, and etc. Now, the assumption or inclination towards social projection is a simpler form of this such modeling. When we share with the other person the same background, environment, knowledge, and goals, it can be quite effective. But if it is lacking in reality, somewhere, it could cause trouble. Now, within the first few years of life, integrating multiple lines of information into a mental state inference develops steadily, and the process leads to a substantial amount of research. Lastly, we have explanations of behavior, intentional and unintentional behavior, and agents. Now, when we try to understand why someone acted or felt a certain way, is when we are in explanations of behavior. When we are relying on theory of minds, explanations of behavior makes meaningful what would otherwise be inexplicable emotions. And to explain the intentional behaviors, we use a more sophisticated framework of interpretation, following directly from the other's concept of intentionality and associated mental states that they infer. For majority of unintentional behaviors, old theories of how people explain and understand behavior suggested that people merely identify causes of the behavior. Now, in order for an agent to perform a behavior intentionally, one must have a desire for an outcome, beliefs about how a particular action leads up to the outcome, and the intention to perform said action. People consider this to be an intentional action only if the agent performs the action with awareness and skill. Now, to sum up everything that has been discussed so far, to understand and predict the beliefs, thoughts, feelings, desires, and intention of another person, it is very important when it comes to social interaction, communication, and building those relationships that are fundamental for everybody. And this leads to why theory of mind is very significant to psychology and life itself. Now, thank you guys so much for listening. Bye.